I'm Emily Rooney. Welcome to Beat the Press. Our topics: sports writers make a political statement by refusing to use the Washington Redskins name. Vladimir Putin and Bashar al-Assad get some free press courtesy of the American press. ABC News adds a touch of schmaltz to the mix with its America Strong series. That plus our panel rants and raves of the week. Joining me are Dan Kennedy of Northeastern University, WGBH's Kelly Crossley, Josh Benton of the Neiman Journalism Lab, and John Keller of WBZ. First, the name of Washington, D.C.'s football team has been a source of debate for years, with some Native Americans saying the Redskins moniker is racist. Now the media is joining the fray, and one of the biggest names in sports journalism says it's time to ditch Redskins once and for all. Adam Riley has more.
Hi, Peter King with the MMQB.
Peter King is the driving force behind Sports Illustrated's Monday Morning Quarterback, a must-read for millions of football fans. So when King announced that he won't call the Washington Redskins the Redskins anymore, it was a big deal.
It has nothing to do with calling anyone a racist, calling anybody anything. It's just that I am uncomfortable using the name.
King isn't the only journalist who's decided to banish the Redskins moniker. Highbrow outlets like Slate and The New Republic say they're done using it too. And plenty of sports columnists think Washington needs a new name.
The fact that it's offensive to Native Americans should be enough.
Meanwhile, Native American activists are in court trying to rescind the team's lucrative Redskins trademark.
You wouldn't trademark a racist name. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Of course, the Redskins aren't the only sports franchise branded with American Indian imagery.
Blackhawks are Stanley Cup champions!
But it's the Redskins who've become a cause celeb. For now, owner Dan Snyder is defiant, saying, "We'll never change the name. Never." But if more big media names like Peter King pile on, he may not have a choice.
Well, I, for one, am not going to take my moral direction from the world of sports reporters. And in this case, if King really believes that Peter King believes that, the name is racist, then he shouldn't cover the team. Because Dan Snyder, the owner of the team, says he'll never change it. So that would, by extension, mean that Dan Snyder is racist, if he believes that to be true. The other thing is, I have not seen any hue and cry, any outrage from the Native American community. In fact, it's the activists in the Native American community that are upset about it. But a poll was done just recently. 70% of Native Americans said they had no problem with it.
Well, I think it's pretty bad. And I think that what some of these sports journalists are doing, it's a symbolic action. I think it's a good symbolic action. I have no problem with that. Certainly nobody will lament the passing of Chief Wahoo of the Cleveland Indians when he finally leaves the scene. Maybe it doesn't amount to much, but I think it's important symbolism, and I'm glad they're doing it.
We've fought these battles over a number of years, and in the college ranks, there are lots of university sports teams that were named for the Indians or the Red Men or other sorts of names. Almost all of those have gone, and yet we've managed to survive. It's really in the professional ranks where these battles are remaining to be fought. And we had this uplift in the early 1990s around the Atlanta Braves issue when they were doing well in baseball. I think it's a totally reasonable thing for Peter King to choose to do, and for other news organizations to choose to do. They're not the first to do it. A couple of news organizations have done this for 20 years. Anytime you name a sports team for for a group of people, an ethnic or a racial group, whether you're intending it to be complimentary or not, you're necessarily ascribing a characteristic to a group, and I think that's just more trouble than it's worth. I think they're right to do it.
Well, I absolutely agree. And I'm always fascinated by the people who say it's no big deal, are not the people who've ever experienced having that. And having spent a fair amount of time with Native American journalists who cover these issues, it's talked about everywhere all the time. It hasn't gone away over the years. In fact, that's how I first even became aware of it, to my great embarrassment. I hadn't even thought about this as an issue, and it was raised to me by a number of Native Americans and those journalists who cover them. So it's not a small thing, and it's been something that's been a steady drumbeat, and I don't mean that in any kind of ironic way, to try to get the attention of the wider audience about it. And for me, as a person who watched the naming of the group of people with whom I identify change over time, it happened because other people said, hey, I'm not going to use that word anymore. It's not appropriate. To me, it's akin to certain news organizations having just said recently we're not going to use illegal immigrants. It's the same thing.
Well, I think I've made it clear here before. I don't like the PC police, particularly butting their nose into our business. I just don't like them generally. But having said that, the reason I don't like them is I believe in freedom, a free press, free journalistic expression, but that cuts both ways. These journalists, Peter King and others, are perfectly free to make this decision to call them the Skins or something else. Damage done to Dan Snyder's brand and his profits doesn't disturb me in the slightest. The customers who patronize those news organizations, if they're offended by that move, they're free to boycott those journalistic operations and tune out Peter King. As Rodney King once said, can't we all just get along?
And in particular, there's a particular history to the Redskins name. I mean, the Washington Redskins were the last NFL team to have a black player. They were forced to do so by the federal government because they were playing in D.C. They had a notorious racist owner. There's layers of history that is specific to this team, which means that even beyond the word itself, there's reason to.
But should the NFL take a position on this? Because
yes,
they should then, because you can't have this totally willy-nilly approach to it.
Well, individual people are allowed to. A reporter can. There's nothing wrong with saying Washington instead of saying the Redskins.
They actually rolled into a piece I'm doing later. I mean, they're using the term the Washington Redskins. It's the name of the team.
In the end, the NFL is going to have to make this decision because, in the same way that the reason why the college teams changed was because the NCAA started to create sanctions. If you're not allowed to go to a national tournament if you have a name that is offensive to a Native American group, it's going to take the NFL doing it. But the NFL is only going to do that if there's public pressure. And I think if someone feels that that's an appropriate thing,
are the same ones who protect guys who do horrible things to women, and
so they should be consistently horrible, is what you're saying.
I mean, the idea that sports reporters are taking the high road on this, I find a little bit of irony in that.
So you smell a little self-serving branding there.
I do, I must say.
Okay.